What's going on, guys? It's the Coaster Battleman here, bringing you another coaster battle today. Millennium Force versus Intimidator 305 versus Fury 325. And these are the 3 Giga coasters I've ridden. And I'm going to compare all 3 of them and see which of the 3 is the best. And I know what you guys are thinking. I'm not going to say anything about controversial opinion, but let's get started. And I know here are the categories. There are no inversions on any of these coasters, so I replaced it with airtime because all these coasters have airtime in them. So I put that over inversions for the categories, and then the rest of the categories are the same. You may pause if you guys would like to view the categories, but let's move on to the height. Worth 5 points, Millennium Force, Intimidator 305, and Fury 325 are all Giga coasters. They're huge, they're massive. I'm giving them all 5s because of how large these things are. Like, if they were hyper level, I'd probably give them like 4 out of 5, but anything above 300 feet I would give a 5 out of 5 easily. So these rides are just massive. Next, we have the speed, which is worth 10 points, and Millennium Force goes 93 miles per hour. I'm giving it 9.3 out of 10. Intimidator 305 goes 90 miles per hour. I'm giving it 9 out of 10. And then Fury 325 goes 9.95 miles per hour, so 9.5 points for Fury. The scores are still really close, but moving on, we have duration, and Millennium Force is about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And it feels like a long ride, but the more I've ridden this coaster, the shorter it feels. But I'm still giving it a ton of points, 8 out of 10. Intimidator 305, it packs in so many great elements, but I timed it from the start to finish, from when it arrived into the from the time it left the station to the time it arrived back into the station. It timed out to be a little over 1.5 minutes, so pretty short coaster. Even though RCDP says it's 3 minutes, that's not even true at all. It's about half of that. So I'm giving it 6 out of 10 because of how many elements it goes through in that short amount of time. And Fury 325, I'm giving a 10 out of 10. The ride feels so long. It just seems like forever that you're on it, going element after element, even though it's 2.5 minutes. It just feels way longer. Next, we have the smoothness, and Millennium Force, in my opinion, is the smoothest of the 3. Fury 325, if you're in a middle seat, especially if you're in the front row, will be like the smoothest possible rides. Those are like 10 out of 10 smoothness, but the side seats, like the edge seats, like the seats on the complete left or right side, not any of the middle 2 seats, will be the rougher seats, which aren't as smooth, but you'll still have an awesome experience. Just not as good as if you were in a middle seat. So I recommend sit in the middle seat on Fury 325. And for all B&Ms in general, it's kind of like that. In Intimidator 305, I'd give a 9 out of 10 because you might experience a little bit of neck banging through those transitions because of how intense they are, but it doesn't really hurt really at all because of how padded the restraints are. So I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. So airtime. All these coasters have some airtime. Like Intimidator 305, front row, like there's like no airtime really at all. But in the back row, you actually will get some decent airtime on the drop and a few of the airtime hills it has. But in the other rows, you're just flying so fast you won't really notice any airtime. So I'm giving it like a 2. Fury 325 easily has the best airtime out of the 3. 7 out of 8. There's like the end of the ride is just airtime hill after airtime hill after airtime hill, and each one just gives tons of airtime, and it's just fantastic. Millennium Force is just almost as good with an amazing drop with some crazy airtime. You have some very nice floater hills and an ejector airtime hill. So I'm giving Millennium 6 points. Now for the intensity. In Millennium Force, you gray out after the first drop. And after that, the ride isn't really that intense, so I'm giving it like 4 points out of 7. Intimidator 305, though, easily the most intense of the 3 Giga coasters I've ridden. So intense. The ride has some very powerful transitions and turns. You gray out on that first turn after the first drop for several seconds. Like, it's very, very intense. And Fury 325 is intense in its own right because of the crazy speeds, with the crazy amount of wind in your face. It's super intense like that, but you don't really gray out at all. Next is the drop, and this is worth 5 points. All these coasters are getting 5s. These drops are just so fantastic. They're very fun. Intimidator 305s is definitely the most intense drop. Furies is my favorite, and then the Millennium Force, also an amazing drop. Next is capacity, and this is worth 7 points. And Millennium Force has a capacity of 1,300 riders per hour, which I'm getting a 4 out of 7. I think that's pretty decent when it runs 3 trains. In Cedar Point, their operations on it are the operations there are really good, so they're trying to get people moving. And when you're at the bottom of the ramp and going towards the station, the line just seems to keep moving. When you're in the switchbacks, it doesn't feel like that. So that's why I'm giving them 4 out of 7. Intimidator 305 has a bit of a larger capacity with 1,350 riders because it's a shorter ride than Millennium Force, but I noticed when I was there they only ran 1 train, so that's why I'm giving them 4 out of 7. And then Fury 325, I'm giving a 6 out of 7 because this ride, it seemed like every time I was waiting in line, like even when I was a 5-minute wait, which was like the longest wait I waited in, the line just seemed to keep moving the whole time. When it looked like a 20-minute wait, it was actually 5 minutes. So I'm giving it a 6 out of 7, and the capacity is 1,470 riders per hour. Next is the theming, and this is worth 5 points. Fury 325, the logo is just fantastic, and you have a bunch of hexagons all over the place. It's a decent theme, not like insane, but I'm going to give them a few points. And then Millennium Force, I don't really know what, it's themed to 2000 and the new millennium, the new 2000s era, with the cool station music. Like, the station music's fantastic, and then you have that kind of like a weird theme in the middle of the ride where you're traveling back in time to the dinosaur ages with the dinosaurs from Dinosaurs Alive, which is kind of some theming, kind of not. And next we have the setting, which is worth 6 points, and Millennium Force easily has the best setting out of all these coasters. It's right up next to Lake Erie. It uses the terrain to its advantage as well. And it's just such a great environment for the coaster. It's flying all over the trees, and it's just such a beautiful environment. Especially when you're climbing up the lift hill next to Lake Erie, it feels like you're right over the lake. It's kind of like a weird illusion. Intimidator 305 is kind of in your standard location. It's not like placed in like a small plot of land like a lot of Six Flags coasters. Like, it's in a nice big area of land, so I'm giving it like a 3 out of 6. It's kind of like in the middle of nowhere, kind of feels like that. And Fury 325, I'm giving a 5 out of 6 because it has a very beautiful front entrance facade area with bridges that go over the ride, and it's just a cool setting with all the people looking at Fury and really excited to ride it. And overall, I think the setting for it is pretty underrated, and I think it's a really good setting. And the winner is Fury 325, and congratulations to Fury 325. You're my #1 coaster, and you have won this battle between the other Giga coasters I've ridden. And thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos.